Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Abby Hagyard. And boy, is it ever raining out there. It's like sideways. Eek. So here it is, Thursday, and it's 10 o'clock Abbey, New York time, which means that it's time for us, and it's time for a warm beverage. Yes. And now, click my little thing that says, hi, everyone, welcome back. And there we are. And now what does this mean? Why does that do that? Does it mean that it's working? I don't know. Oh, we'll find out. Okay, so I wanted to tell you, first of all, that the beautiful, lovely, talented Eric Cubs managed to, I don't know, do whatever kinds of things he needed to do so that the powers that be at Fox Television down in Florida said, fine, we'll air your piece. So they have this new concept that they're diving into, which I think is a smart idea. They've got a show down there in the evenings, Tampa, Florida, on Fox called Florida Tonight. And it's a feel good. It's a community statewide, I guess, outreach to find out quirky, fun, not frivolous so much, but less dark than all of the darkishness that we can kind of veer into. And what they look for are feel-good stories and interesting elements. And Eric pitched the idea to the decision makers that it would be great occasionally, and I think they do it on Wednesdays, to have a nostalgia element to the show, a throwback to the days of yore, what the things that we grew up loving. And so he reached out to me a few weeks ago now and said, hey, Mom, speaking of nostalgia. So Eric and I sat down, we had a long, lovely conversation, laughed a whole lot. And he said, okay, we're going to whittle it down the best we can, put some cool, fun effects and visuals in post-production, and we'll see what we come up with. And then it was going to air a couple of weeks ago, but the news cycle is just so up and down everywhere these days. So it was postponed, but it was on last night. And the thing is, I signed off without knowing what it was that was going to be aired, how much of it, what I was going to look like. And Eric, brilliant, and your team, your people in post-production, brilliant. Love the special effects, love the cutaways, love everything about it. And what was amazing was that I got to tell a story that I very seldom tell, which is basically the state of Florida, the southern part of Florida anyway, was my surrogate home for years. I mean, every winter we would vacation there. My dad said, I'm on vacation, I'm not shoveling snow. And he would rent us an apartment. We would live there just like regular folk. And that went on for years. I think I was 7 or 8 years old when it first started. And except for that blip away in Europe, when we came back, when I was, ready, I went to junior college in Coral Gables, Florida, and I had friends who were in Orlando and Gainesville, and then, of course, when the show was distributed by Nickelodeon, eventually Nickelodeon had that goofy thing you could sign up for at Orlando. You could go and get slimed. So I said it's come full circle. I even got my career started because I went down to Tampa and took a month off and wrote my first show. So it was like a coming home for this transient gypsy. And there's nothing more fabulous than that feeling that you walk in, and there's my favorite this and here's my favorite that. You just feel like you belong, right? And this is what we did, not only with You Can't Do That on Television, but with the Care Bears and with Teddy Ruxpin and all the shows that were produced in Ottawa in the 80s. We were addressing, speaking to, leaning in, hugging the latchkey generation, the kids who, they wore the key to the front door of their house around their neck. They came home and the TV was their babysitter because for a lot of people, mom and dad were working. And so our shows were their babysitters, were their surrogates. So a lot of kids who are now in their fairly impressive decision-making years were raised by me and Les Lai and the writers and our kids. My God, we're lucky the world is doing as well as it is, really, when you think about it. So it was so great that Fox said, let's do it. It was so great that Eric and I just had the most amazing conversation. And then what was brilliant was that when the clip ended, the two lovely hosts were standing beside the big, on-screen monitor, but they were watching it and they were completely gobsmacked. The camera comes back to them and they both went, wow. And, it's not often that people in that job are at a loss for words. And then the great thing was that the second half of the feature was about Care Bears. And they had this whole thing about what a Florida Care Bear would be called and why. So I've shared it. Eric shared it on Facebook, saying in case you missed it, and he shared it to me, and I've shared it all over the place. So if you're a member of any of the groups that I belong to, I didn't do it yet on the other platforms because I need to get Eric's permission. But my gosh, that was fun, and that leads me into the conversation today, because I got to tell you, today is a day where the pavement and the sky are the same color. And that's just wrong, boys and girls. I got to tell you, that's just wrong. So what do we do? I had this conversation from a different angle on Tuesday. What what triggers your goofy grin? Like what brings your spark back, your magic back? What do you lean into? What kind of a hook do you use? And I was saying in that ABCAST that I watch Minions trailers because they're so cheerful, unrelentingly destructive, but cheerful. Can't understand a thing they say, but cheerful. And I watch them and I laugh, and then I'm better. Like, I'm instantly better. And because, you get that hard laugh, that's a dopamine hit. That just pulls all the cortisol out of your body, flings it to the curb, and you have to deliberately begin again to be unhappy, to be toxic, to be overwhelmed. You have to go back there on purpose. This is why joy and laughter and connection and engagement are just so essential. So the conversation today, though, sometimes it's the externals that are causing the problem. It's not your own something trigger. It's that plus this, right? So I want to talk about it because we are struggling. There's no question that we are struggling these days in a different way entirely. So give me a second. I was at I belong to a private members club, and they had a shareholders meeting last night, and just an aside, and I grabbed the president of the club who had been a fan of the Kid Show, and I said, I want to talk to you. I want to bend your ear, and I want you to say yes to me. And he said, yes. And I said, no, after. So I talked to him about Pivotry in motion. And I talked to him about our moment when we hit something. And whatever we were thinking before that is now different. Whatever that moment we hit, I call it the Milo moment. I call it the Milo moment for a very lovely and nostalgic, important reason. And Milo is the name of a beautiful orange tabby who suddenly became very ill. And I know we all have loved ones, fur babies and all that kind of stuff. This was not about a fur baby. This was about a scenario in which we had a lot of complicated, difficult, unhappy, painful stuff going on. And everyone involved was taking comfort in the fact that Milo was relentlessly there and arrogant and que sera, sera. Huge, deeply kind of restoring us, right? And then he suddenly got terribly sick, and we all dug our heels in to help. And then we lost him. And I said, I think in honor of what Milo has brought to us, this there should be his moment, a turning point moment. I've never named it before. Pivotry in motion is how we navigate it, but I'd never had a name for it, and I thought it's a perfect name. So how I define it is this: we go along and go along and go along, and we maybe relax our vigil, and we stop policing our boundaries. We stop firmly stating who we are and what we bring and what we stand for, because we assume that everybody knows. And when we go there, we actually initiate a, a, a downward spiral, a slow leak, a gradual diminishing of the clarity of our purpose and our vision and our values. And then, because we do that, because we are the author of that, people take their marching orders from us. We, in fact, not realizing it, teach people how to treat us. So if we are dismissed, diminished, ignored, in some way compromised, it is partly to do with what we have allowed, what we have indicated was something we would tolerate. And so in our lives, what happens is every one of us at some point has a Milo moment. And I describe it as we have gone along and gone along and gone along, and we've said, it's not that bad, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. And then all of a sudden, it is. All of a sudden, no warning, wham, it is that bad. In fact, it's not acceptable. And we know it in an instant. And the minute we know it, we can't go back. We can't. The box we were pretzeling ourselves into, too small. It's over. And now it's up to us to decide what we do next. So when I had, gosh, it's 7 years ago now, when I began thinking about Pivotry in motion, I began thinking about it as an important and really, I think, game-changing concept. It was because I saw so many people around me diminished and demoralized, exhausted, confused, anxious, depressed, because they had no skill set, they had no instructions, they had no tools to manage their way through the pandemic and the ups and downs and changes in what was good and what was not, and what was safe and what was not. And it went on too long. And I mean, you can change a habit in 30 days. This was 3.5 years. And as a military kid, I have lived through postings of a similar length that were awful, but bearable if you kept your eye on the prize, if you kept your eye on the direction. Good morning, Frank. I'll listen to it later. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Frank. That's lovely of you. Thank you. When we think we have our eye on the prize and we suddenly realize, actually, no, we don't. We have an ability at this moment to dig in and find the quality in us to take on this different challenge. As a military child, from pretty much birth, I knew I had this skill. Every time you come home and there's moving boxes in the living room that were not in the living room that morning, come home from school and suddenly you know you're not going to be in the school play next week. And that cute kid that you had your eye on, you should have said hello sooner, because it's over. How do you ride that? How do you navigate that? How do you bounce back from that over and over and over? And the answer is, we actually know. We just don't know. And how I define it is this: every creature has an ability to shapeshift, to camouflage themselves, to adopt their surroundings, to make themselves big or small or not at all when a crisis looms. Every creature is equipped with those abilities. Some of us have stinging nettles. Some of us have poisonous attitudes. Some of us literally have the ability to shapeshift. All of us, all creatures, great and small, have this skill. What very, very few creatures have, because by the way, it's called mirroring. We look at what it is and we try to adopt it, adapt it, and apply it. Because if it's working, we want it to work for us. What human beings have the ability to do is reach into our alter ego storage tanks and pull out a quality that we have that can not only meet the challenge, but can actually leverage the challenge, leverage the momentum of the challenge, shift the way we speak, shift the way we see it, shift the intention we had going into it, become flexible, become resilient, open our focus to see the bigger picture. And instead of resolutely banging our nose against something right here, aim for over there. We are innately gifted with it. That we don't know simply means that somebody needs to teach us. Hello, here I am. So I put all this together and I called it Pivotry, because a pivot is a hard turn. In the face of something you didn't see, a pivot is a hard turn. Okay, but you have to change your mindset. You have to change your attitude. You have to change your purpose, your intention, your focus. That is an art form. That is creative. That is strategic. So it's not a pivot, it's Pivotry. And the reason I said Pivotry in motion is that everything is in motion all the time. Something is always rocking the boat. So not only are we applying this skill we have, we're doing it on the fly, on the dead run, while we're changing horses in midstream. That's how skilled we are. However, if we don't know we're skilled, or we used to think we were skilled, but something has overwhelmed us, something has just knocked the stuffing out of us, we can barely figure out whether or not we want to put socks on, let alone show up, let alone make decisions that change people's lives. We're overwhelmed. We're completely done. All right, how do we fix that? We can't just say, oh, well. And I got to tell you, I am a fan. I'm a formal from a distance fan. I just had this hysterically funny thing happen this morning. I was trying to send a document to Richard Glatt. Couldn't do it. Technology would not let me do it. Finally, he gave me other email addresses, and I reached into Messenger and I sent it all the different ways I could. And finally, he's laughing. He said, "Got it." When I wrote, I said, "Yeah, you know." And then I sent him a thing and I said, "Technology is our friend, ish." So what Richard and I were talking about, and Richard, by the way, is carrying on the legacy of his extraordinary dad, Harvey Glatt, who transformed the landscape, not only in Ottawa, Canada, but in Canada, in the music industry. Just a transformative man whose passion just completely shifted everything. And I was lucky enough to know him when I was getting started. We are not worthy. And I had said to Richard a few weeks ago, I have an idea. I've had the idea for 7 years. I need to talk to you. And what I said to him was this: technology is how we are progressing. Everything is technology. When they invented the printing press, calligraphy went out the window. When they invented the railroad, Horses and stagecoaches went out the window. Every technological advance is progress that leaves other things behind, that have to find new ways to be relevant. And sometimes they don't. This is the way the world is. Artificial intelligence, these devices, this allow us to come closer together sooner, in more ways simultaneously. It's genius. What they don't do is bring us close physically. What they don't do is give us that all-important hug when we need it. What they don't do is sidle up to us, tickle our funny bone, and make us grin. They are what is called a medium. They are a method of connection and communication. Very, very famously, back in the, before my time, a man named Marshall McLuhan, Canadian, said of technology and communications and entertainment, the medium is the message. What he meant by that was the medium isn't just how we transmit the message. The medium ends up defining the way we transmit the message. Back in the day when you wrote a letter by hand, and then you wrote a letter typing it, and then you wrote an email, and now we send a text. Every shift in the way we connect and communicate changed in not only the way it looks, but how we structured the message itself, based on the limits and the options and opportunities that the medium provides. We and how we, with our ideas and how we communicate them, we're actually being shape-shifted by the technology, right? This is the way it is. So what has happened, excuse me, cleverly, these little devices, when you get a message, you can opt in when you get one of these devices, you can opt in to get a little audio warning, an audio signal that you have a message. Bing, whatever it is, click, ring, whatever it is. And that makes you pick up your phone. It makes you check. Ooh, got a message. Pavlov created that when he decided, Pavlov was a psychologist, and he wanted to see if he could train dogs to salivate on command. What he did was he had a bell, and he had dog food, and he had dogs. He would ring the bell, open the door, the dogs would come in and find food in dishes, eat the food, send the dogs away. Later, ring the bell, open the door, dogs come in, find food. He did that over and over and over. And then one day he rang the bell, opened the door, the dogs came in, salivating, no food. The next day, rang the bell, opened the door, the dogs came in, salivating, no food. Third day, no bowl, no nothing. Ring the bell, open the door. The dog's on the other side. Blah, 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 blah. He had actually proven that he could do it. He had trained those dogs to identify a sound with a cue to salivate, to wet their whistle in anticipation of a treat, food, fuel. It does the same thing. It gives us the excitement, the dopamine hit, the anticipation that somebody cares, somebody has something to share with us. Increasingly, there's less that they're sharing that is worth watching or looking at or thinking about. We're still anticipating, we're still eager. And we are anticipating and eager, more eager, that we are checking even before there is a ping. People are walking off into traffic, looking at their phones, salivating on the inside. And in the process, people are disconnecting from each other in person. Let's go to dinner, darling. We get all dressed up. We go to dinner. We're sitting at our favorite restaurant. We have the menu. We order. They bring the wine. And then we both pick up our phones. We're not there having dinner together. We're just sharing the table while we check to see if there's anything worth salivating over. Why that's a challenge, why that's an issue, is that when all of a sudden something happens and there is a crisis, we eventually forget how to reach out. We eventually forget that the hug is the restorative trigger we need. We eventually stop looking for our tribe, our real tribe. We start thinking our tribe is here. We start thinking that complete strangers who have become our friends are people whose ideas and thoughts and opinions have more value, more importance than the people we actually know who actually know. By accident, we are depriving ourselves of the human touch, of human contact. And in doing that, we are losing that warm, fuzzy, funny glow. We're only half here. We're only half aware. We're only half alive. And frankly, Scarlett, that sucks. So I sat down with my concept with Pivotry in Motion, and I talked to a few key people, and I said, I've got a plan. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a speakers agency. We're going to create an organization of smart, hardworking, focused, prioritized people who lean in, who show up, who row the boat, who have fallen down and said, ow, and found a way to get back up. And a lot of the time, nobody has ever known those things happened because they just keep on keeping on. And I said, those are the people I want. We are going to create a whole new kind of conversation with our audiences. There is no reason an audience has to be a spectator sport. There's no reason at all. It's just convenient. It's easier to organize if they just sit there and they keep quiet and let us all do what we do. And then applaud afterwards. And oh, by the way, buy a ticket to get in. Why don't I just stay home then? If I can't participate, why don't I just watch it on whatever platform? And that's the wrong outcome. What we need is more engagement, more connection, more opinions shared and debated and explored. What we need is creative collaboration. What we need is somebody saying, free hugs. And the other person saying, oh, yes, free hugs. Yes, yeah. When Eric and I did the interview for Florida Tonight, I have no idea how long it was. I mean, the full length, because we talked for a long time. He's laughing, asking me stuff. We went way off course. It didn't matter. And when we got to the end of it, he said, can I call you Mom? And I said, of course you can. And he said, I got to tell you, I needed this. I needed this verbal hug. I needed to have this moment with you because it reignited, it reawakened how I felt every day coming home from school and watching your crazy shows. And I needed this. And I know that our viewers are going to say, oh, yeah, we needed that. And I said, well, listen, if you need to have me on again. So this is this is the intention today, because as I said, it's gray outside. What colors are it today? Gray, 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 gray. It's raining sideways. Fine. When I go out, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get in the car that matches my hair and I'm going to drive through the grayness and people are going to go, because I can. Because I chose in anticipation of gray days. When I was living in Florida and I came back to Canada to carry on with my life, I went into one of those places that sells dishes and stuff. I bought dishes that were sunshine yellow and turquoise blue. Why? Because I knew I was coming back. I knew I was coming back to the part of Canada that is gray from about, I don't know, November 6th until the 12th of March. Occasionally we get snow and therefore it's white, but otherwise it's gray. And that's a lot. That's November, December, January, February. That's almost 6 months. I needed a pick-me-up and I had these fabulous dishes. People would come and say, wow, where'd you get those? Florida. Well, that figures. I do. You see the curtains? See the curtains? Yeah. That's not an accident. That's on purpose. That's for a gray day, right? If I open those blinds, no, keep them closed. The blinds are white. Everything's got color. I've got tulips, right? I've got stuff. I've got shoes. I have where are they? Where are they? Lime green shoes, right? Lime green fascinator, orange fascinator. I've got stuff that's cheerful because everybody needs a shot in the arm when the skies are gray. Now, when the internal skies are gray, the conversation is not different. The conversation is remarkably the same. How I translated it is, what's your internal weather forecast? Did you wake up feeling all right? Even if you didn't sleep well, did you wake up and say, okay, the good thing is that this is maybe the best pillow I ever bought. The good thing is I woke up 5 minutes before the alarm. I got 5 more minutes. The good thing is I pre-programmed the coffee machine and the coffee's going to be ready when I'm vertical. These are small good things, but they are tiny glimpses of blue sky in an overcast mindset. I had those dishes. I have different dishes now, but they accomplish the same thing. I have this warm, it's my favorite mug. I have this warm earth tone mug. It doesn't matter what kind of day it is. This feels very grounding. It feels, and it's a kind of a clayish sort of thing. It's very natural. And I love the weight of it and the size of it. I buy these small things. I make these small decisions as comfort spots. You know how you connect the dots? You know how you make a quilt? A quilt is a whole bunch of squares, a whole bunch of chunks of stuff, information, fabric, themes, ideas. How the quilt becomes a quilt is the way we stitch it together, right? Coping mechanisms during COVID, coping mechanisms during downturns in our relationships, whether they're personal, whether they're career, whether they're corporate. We need the coping mechanisms to stitch the fabric together so that we can keep going. One of the elements of Pivotry in Motion is something that I have called executive grief. And I'm going to explain it to you in a second. Hang on. So this part of the brain is the part that develops last. It's where the more finely tuned thinking takes place. It's called executive function, what this brain does. Executive function is the ability to understand cause and effect and then act on it with intention. So cause and effect is tomorrow is my final exam. If I pass, I move on. I get a bonus, I get a this, I get a that, I get a reward of some kind. If I fail, I have to repeat the grade. And all my friends will move on. Tonight, there's a party. It's going to be a blowout party. Am I going to the party to party like it's 1899? Or am I going to give it a miss, get a good night's sleep, and ace the exam tomorrow? Cause, effect. If I stay out all night at the party, I got a really good chance of failing the exam. A really good chance of failing the exam. I might not even wake up in time. How important is that party compared to everything else I'm counting on that happens tomorrow when I take the exam, ace the exam, and pass? How important is this over that? That's cause and effect. Cause and effect, executive function, doesn't usually form in humans until our late teens, which is why a lot of people in their mid to late teens go to the party. Choose to go out with that one. What was I thinking? Chose to wear this and then saw the picture of themselves in the mirror and thought, executive function is how we process and progress. If a crisis hits, if we experience something traumatic that alters our perception of the world around us and our perception of ourselves, and we hit that wall hard and fall down, it can significantly delay the development of executive function. If in the midst of a busy, critical time when we're firing on all cylinders and we're working it like there was no tomorrow, a crisis hits that we did not see coming, we can be so blindsided that we actually lose the capacity to perform the functions that we were known for, our superpower. We are basically dead in the water because we are overwhelmed by the trauma. We cannot figure out why we should even care about putting socks on, let alone that there's a big deal that has to happen today. And if we don't close that deal, our business fails, and everybody counting on the paycheck from our business is out of work, out of money, out of luck. That perfect storm is what I call executive grief. We not only grieve the loss of who we were, who we believe ourselves to be, how we have managed to get back up and start again in the past. We are overwhelmed by the guilt, shame, blame that we place on our own shoulders because we have no longer delivered on our promises to all the people who were counting on us because we told them they could. That is a catastrophic fail. How do we recover? And how does that even happen in the first place? That's what people say. How did that? Because we don't want to ask how to recover. We want to know why did you even, what were you thinking? So the image that I use is those nesting dolls. You know, where you have a little tiny doll and you have another one outside it, another one outside it, another one outside. And so I say this collection of nesting dolls is the illustration of who we are and how we navigate our places in the world. The original smallest doll is core us. The next doll isn't fake. It isn't a mask. It's a role we take on willingly. There's me, and there's my relationship to my family. Mom, dad, buddy, sis, sibling, right? The next doll is our relationship to our immediate world. Neighbor, commuter, colleague, friend. The next doll is what we do for a living. The next doll after that is how we are perceived, how we present ourselves in our larger world. We all have those versions of ourselves. They're not fake, they're not phony, they're not masks. This is me at home in my sweatpants, and the biggest one is me attending the annual meeting of the shareholders in the big city at the convention. And every step along the way, this is me bringing flowers and candy on somebody's birthday. This is me looking after my house and being a good neighbor. This is me communicating and connecting and engaging in my community. All are versions of us. If the initial core us has a meltdown, has a breakdown, has burnout, we cannot inhabit all the other roles we have agreed to take on. This is how we connect and thrive in the world. The 5 or 6 versions of us, sometimes 10. It's too many hats. And we take on these hats and we take on these roles and commitments when things are going well. And we don't say, I wonder what happens if. We don't do that often enough. As a military kid, I had to revisit all my me every couple of years. Endlessly. So I know how difficult it is to maintain. I know how difficult it is to choose what to keep and what to adapt and change. I know it. I also know how we do it. I also know how we find the strength, we find the resolve, we find the healing tools to believe in ourselves again. I know how it's done. And I said, that's what we're going to do. This is who we're going to be. Because through life, at every one of our 10-year turning points, we're born, that's a moment. We go through puberty, that's a moment. We become 20, that's at 30, yes, 40, 50, 60. Every 10 years, it's a wake-up call. And at every 10-year cycle, we look at ourselves, revisit, revise, reset, re-energize. We don't know we do it. That's why people have all their midlife and early life and teenage and young adult crises, retirement crisis. Yay, I'm retired. 3 days later, now what? This is what our group is designed to talk about, to share, to discuss, to engage, because it is a strategic human need to know firsthand, in person, touch, people like us care about us. We are not alone. We are not kicked out of a cave and left to roam where the saber-toothed whatnots are. We have sanctuary. We are loved. This is what I'm working for. So my thought for you when the skies are gray is this. It's very simple. I gave you something to do with your weapon of mass construction on Tuesday. I said, get Post-it notes and write down one trigger word that triggers your silly grin. One trigger word that makes you giggle. Pickle, banana, cheese doodle, minion. When you see the word, it opens a floodgate of all the reasons you always grin. Okay, today, get your weapon of mass construction. And this is what I want you to write down. Your bucket list only has one bucket. Write down the name of the favorite thing, most favorite, top favorite that you would put in it. Not alone. It's big enough. You can put other stuff. I only want to know the first one, the big one, that one that gives you the cherishing, nurturing, needed hug. The virtual mom who says, well, I don't know, dear. I suppose we've got it. Let's ask your father. Lance? And we wait for his voice to say, we got it. What is your favorite thing? What is your warm thing? What is your gratitude thing, your cherished thing, your love thing that just makes you say, we all have one. I urge you not to go down the path to say, well, I used to have it, but I don't know. Don't go there. That's a grade A thought. Just write down what it is. Not when you last had it, what it is, what the memory of it is, what the taste of it is, what the texture of it is, what the sound of it is, what the shape of it is, the color of it. Write that down on another Post-it note. Because we, as shapeshifters, do not have to stare at a sky that is gray. We have the capacity to turn and say, oh, look, did you see that? We've got that. I want you to remember something really important. It occurred to me quite a few years ago. I wrote it down. I looked it up. Nobody had said it, so I copyrighted it. Change is only hard when we didn't think of it. If you're comfortable like Eeyore, feeling glum, by the way, it's no accident that Eeyore is gray, right? If you're comfortable like Eeyore feeling glum, then I've got a surprise for you. Glum is what makes you feel okay. You get a warm fuzzy from feeling safe, from feeling it's the same. You didn't see that coming, did you? So, when the sky is gray, all the leaves are brown and the sky is gray, you don't have to dream of some other place. It's here. It's here. And it's contagious. And if you're having difficulty seeing the color in your cheeks and the grin on the inside, and if you can't close your eyes and just bring back the favorite smell, what's your favorite smell? Is it fresh baked bread? Is it spaghetti sauce burbling on the stove? Is it something spicy and tangy? Do you love the smell of chocolate? Do you love the texture of, I don't know, canvas or velvet or crisp linen? Do you love the sound of crackling fire? Cool water on a hot day? That is your glimmer. That is the way you change. That is your idea. This is how I'm shifting. Change is only hard when we didn't think of it. I just thought of it and I'm on it. That's how we own and banish the gray. And believe me, when I say believe me, I'm not just asking you to believe me. I'm telling you that I've lived it. I've walked it. I know it works. I use it every day. Okay? So I'm going to update you very soon on how the Lion Effect Speakers Agency is coming together. We have some amazing people who are excited about it, who are standing saying, when are we starting? That's very comforting. That's very, very rewarding. And tomorrow, I'm sitting down with someone who has said, I might have a venue for you. And I said, oh boy, and it's not even my birthday. So I have lots of stuff to share with you next week when we're back. And when we are back, my gosh, it's the 30th of September, which means we have a whole new month that's going to be starting. So between now and then, I want you to do the thing that I always suggest, and that is I want you to be good to you. Today, how I want you to be good to you is channel your inner channel your inner Viking, channel your inner midnight cowboy. I'm walking here. Channel your inner lion. Let them hear you roar, even if it's a little one. Together we can keep the jackals at bay. I know we can. So be good to you. You deserve it. Remember to hug your loved ones because they deserve it too. And as always, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for putting it on your calendar. Thank you for saying, I'll be right with you. I need to watch Abby. Thank you for telling your friends. And for all the new people joining, welcome. Let's do it again. Because without you, it's a rehearsal. All right?